How many of you understood what I just signed? And how many of you would be able to have a conversation with me? How many of you would even be willing to have a conversation with me and feel comfortable doing so? And how many of you would even be able to understand what I was trying to communicate and say? This is just a few things that deaf or hard of hearing people face on a daily basis in the United States, just with the roles reversed. So I'm here today to present to you a speech on why I think it is important for the United States to mandate American Sign Language in their schools. Every day, more and more schools are mandating for their children to learn a second foreign language, such as Spanish and French. However, many of them are forgetting a native second language we have here in the United States, and that is American Sign Language, or ASL for short. It's not uncommon to know somebody in the United States that's fluent in a language such as Spanish or even French, but it's almost unheard of to know somebody that is fluent in American Sign Language who isn't either hard of hearing or deaf themselves, or knows somebody who is hard of hearing or deaf. In 2015, 360 million people reported serious hearing loss around the world. That's only 5% of the world's population. However, the United States report that American Sign Language is the 6th most used language in the country and the 4th most studied among universities in the country. So why is there such a large number of hearing people who have no experience with American Sign Language or the deaf community? Well, that is because there is an ignorance that surrounds the deaf community with the hearing people. A lot of people who are hearing and have no experience with American Sign Language or deaf people or the community will feel a sense of distress or uncomfortableness when trying to communicate with a deaf person. And the deaf person may also feel this distress or uncomfortableness. A lot of you probably even felt it when I began my presentation with American Sign Language. I want to touch on a personal experience. My boyfriend, who happens to be deaf, when he goes out and tries to do simple tasks such as pay for his groceries, pump his gas, or even ask for directions to somewhere, usually feels that distress or uncomfortableness due to the communication barrier, because a lot of people simply do not know American Sign Language in our country. He even had to travel about 45 minutes outside of his home district to a school because it was the only school in the county that offered learning alternatives for those that are hearing impaired or deaf. This was the only way for him to go to school and be able to communicate with his teachers, his peers, and how to further his education. The younger a child is, the better off we are with teaching them American Sign Language. If we could teach these children American Sign Language at the early elementary school phase, it could help eliminate that feeling of uncomfortableness and distress. Studies also show that the younger a child is, the easier it is for them to pick up a second language other than their native language. I actually taught both of my boys American Sign Language because their father is hearing impaired. We were signing to them as soon as they were born, and as a result, they were able to communicate with us when they needed something to eat, if they wanted more, if they were tired, or if they needed a diaper change. They did this through American Sign Language as early as 4 months old. That a normal child normally is only able to communicate that at as young as 9 months old. And our boys were telling us their wants and needs at 4 months old. And they were actually able to communicate their wants and needs before they could orally tell us their wants and needs. Another good point is the intellectual and social benefits a child receives from learning American Sign Language. Studies show that children that learn American Sign Language as babies and toddlers, it helps improve their vocabulary skills and their oral communication skills. Children that learn American Sign Language also have better and higher IQs than their peers who do not learn American Sign Language. And also, it helps with their language art skills and their vocabulary skills. Studies also show that children who learn American Sign Language are actually more affectionate towards their parents and their peers. Why? Studies don't say. It seems that as time goes on, more and more schools are seeing the benefits that teaching American Sign Language in their classrooms brings. 35 states in the United States of America alone have already mandated that their elementary schools teach American Sign Language. Over hundreds of universities are teaching American Sign Language classes, And even more universities are now offering interpreter programs and majors for American Sign Language. Hopefully, we don't have to wait much longer for American Sign Language to be just as fluent in this country as English is. Helping bring these two communities of the hearing people and the deaf people together will definitely be beneficial for both parties. Thank you.